Hi everyone. Here's an interesting concept I just thought of, and I think it's very important. This has to do with panic attacks. How or why is it when you teach someone in stage blue, amber, about these concepts of spirituality and like the no self or the nature of self, the nature of the universe, of God, why do they get panic attacks? Why do they get anxiety? And this goes very deep. So let's just jump right into it. The fundamental answer is that there is a collective ego. Okay, so there's a collective accepted paradigm within any group of people. And so that group of people holds in a religion, let's say, that either Jesus is the Savior or the Torah is the book of the Jews where there's a chosen people who everyone should follow. Or in Islam, Muhammad is the last prophet and everyone must either become Muslim or subservient. There's some kind of variation of that which is found in all types of monotheistic religions, especially the big three. And why is it that if you teach a lot of these people these things, they end up becoming quite nervous? So the main answer is because it's not framed in a way that's acceptable for the collective ego. And so if you say it in a way that matches what they're used to, like say it in the way that the Prophet Muhammad probably experienced it. The Prophet experienced Allah as a white light that came down, or connecting with the ever-present now. But you use terminologies that are indicative of a well-versed knowledge in the Quran, let's say, that will all of a sudden open their mind up to believing in something else. And the same applies to Christianity and Judaism and all the various factions of monotheistic belief systems. And this even extends to other stage blue variations, or stage amber. Now, when I say there's a collective ego, how does that work? Does it have an appearance? It's, in a way, it's hypothetical, but it's also serious. It's also literal. Because everything forms itself in metaphor or energy. Energy and metaphor are the same thing. The reason why our minds perceive visions or symbols during dreams or during visions or during alternate states of consciousness is because the mind is conceiving of things in specific formats that are predictable for humans, for that are standard for how humans think about things. And these symbols will probably evolve, they'll probably change in some fashion as you ascend the stages and go through different mystical states. But at the same time, this energy of metaphor is a real thing. The metaphor becomes something that affects that collective paradigm, and as such, it's real. Now, they may not take their own dreams as seriously as they evolve themselves, right? As they enter into stage orange of spiral dynamics. I'm just adjusting the lighting here because it's difficult to really find the perfect lighting. Oh, it's because, you know what? It's because this thing is out, and if I go like this, you'll be able to... It's very strange. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I don't like editing out stuff. It just gets annoying. But I guess it's still important. So important things generally bring distractions. So I like to keep the distractions in for that reason alone. Not to prove there is some kind of supernatural stuff, but to prove how the mind is. When there's something that people don't want you to know about, there's going to be distractions in a video. Because the truth is holy. It's something you want to hear. The soul wants to hear. The true part of you wants to hear. The one that's infinite. Now, so the collective ego, is it real? So it feels real. So therefore, you might say it is real. So basically, the reason why someone gets anxious is because they're adopting a specific paradigm, and as such, it's almost like they're under the sovereignty of a certain way of thinking. So but that's why I often say people in stage blue are slaves. And when I say this to them, they're taught to believe that you're a slave if you don't do this, because then you'll be a servant to your desires, right? They're speaking things that were taught in the old days, but they've never evolved to realize that sometimes giving in is part of the evolutionary process. And so it's taboo to say that really becoming materialistic and letting yourself be animalistic the way you thought was wrong is a necessary step to finally getting out of it in an infinite ongoing journey, right? But if you say this to someone in stage blue, they do not like to conceive of a path that goes like this. Goes up, goes up, goes up, and then it goes there, goes up. And also they don't like to conceive of a path that goes like this. Goes up, goes down, down, down. Goes up, down, down. They want consistency, and it's very practical. But the reason they want consistency is because there's a fear of being down. But the fear of being down causes a problem of staying up because they have to be up. So that pressure is actually bombarding with the need to be happy. And I think when you go into stage orange, right, you move up in spiral dynamics, you take those ideas of you want to stay high into your status focused materialism. And as such, your materialism is infused with the goal to keep getting more, because you were taught from stage blue that you should always be going up and doing better than you were before. So you're not allowed to be depressed. You're not allowed to be in the dumps. You're not allowed to be lesser than other people. That was kind of the foundation of orange. So what's the point here? People are allowed to be in stage blue, but at the same time, it's like they're stuck in this unhealthy zone, and how could they get out of it? So there are some people who learn how to transcend, they learn how to find the truth of their own religion. And it's rare and it's very important to happen, but it doesn't happen enough. Or, there are certain people that try to guide others. But what ends up happening is because they have to believe in the fundamentals, it holds them back in their stage blue religion. And the reason why they have to stay in that framework, partially, is because they're also bound to a collective ego. To be free of a collective ego, to be free of a generalized paradigm, you have to feel safe. And you have to feel safe enough that either you divert the whole public's opinion of what the faction is about, right? Like if you're a leader of a Hasidic sect, you have the capacity to do that. Or if you're very famous and they won't misconstrue you because you have a reputation for saying things coherently and framing things in a way that can be adopted. So someone can do that in a stage blue, but that's like the only way. You have to be the leader in order to get heard for something that's would have been controversial. Because if the leader has a different opinion, it's okay, because the leader is the most important thing. Whatever he does, we do. They're still retaining the stage red politics, and they're bringing it, and obviously blue politics and red, they kind of overlap and evolve with each other. But there's a certain repetitive theme of there's one central guy who we honor and respect, and if he does something radical, it's okay because he's going to guide us well. I don't know if stage blue is lesser to have a king. It would make sense because stage blue says they want a leader, but then they end up constantly making factions and breaking off from leadership. So it seems like stage blue likes the concept of a leader that they can't see. So they choose to have Jesus as a savior, but never accept someone who says he's Jesus. Or never to accept someone who says something radical like we don't need to keep the foundations anymore. Because they rather respect the doctrine than live the reality of creating something new. It's a foundational stage of stability. And that's why this stage is so, no matter how far you go, they're always going to want to hold on to their religion and their identity and their belief system. It's so strongly held onto, and it's affecting every one of us. And if you try to break out of a stage amber way of thinking, there is going to be backlash. So the only way to kind of break through is for the collective ego of a specific stage blue sect or religion or whatever, is if it feels okay with the changes. And usually that doesn't happen because there's certain almost primordial foundations, almost concrete, solidified notions that can't be shaken. Because if you broke the chains of that foundation, there's a belief system that they're going to die. Right? It's a life and death phenomenon. So the stage blue collective ego will fight as much as it can, so long as it feels those foundations might get compromised. And you can use that to your advantage when speaking to stage blue, because what you can say is, stage blue just wants their identity to be preserved. So therefore, teach in such a way that reminds them that their religion is holy and respected, right? That their religion, like the cross, like the Christianity, their religion, like have a cross, because their religion is respected. People feel like, oh, you still honor Christianity, even though you're talking about Christ consciousness. So that way you can transition them upwards out of the doctrine-oriented perspective. And the same applies to stage blue amber. You can, I meant in regard to other religions, because Christianity is very loose, so they're the easiest to help shift, no matter their upbringing. But other religions that are more stringent, like Islam and Judaism, and the way to get into them is to remind them that they're an inspiration to other people. So their identity and purpose, right? Purpose is a key word, is not lost. The moment the purpose is lost or the foundation is lost, it's a problem. So then there's the other thing with stage amber is that they have a pain when it comes to foundations, and not just foundations, but the teacher as the foundation. So if in stage blue, there's a teacher that is high, there's a teacher or there's a method of understanding that's highly respected, and the foundation of your knowledge, the foundation of your analyses, of your way of ascertaining truth, if that is compromised, they will lose their cool, they will lose their sanity, and they will go into the utmost, I forgot the word, when the brain just overloads. They will go into overload drive, and either they will fall asleep, they can't they'll get very tired. Once again, there's more noise, but this is very important stuff, obviously, that the reason why the brain goes into overload is because they realize that everything they're doing is pointless. Meaning what you're doing has no point. If there's no point in studying this and thinking in this way, why am I doing it? But stage blue has to have a purpose. So as long as the stage blue remembers that they have an identity, then the collective ego or the ego within them, in that frame of reference, that way of thinking, won't get compromised. It won't feel compromised. And as such, transitions upwards will continue to flow. But I guess the best thing is to remember, you're not going to reform the collective ego. You're just going to get them to forget that things have changed. You'll get them to not. It's like being on anesthesia. You'll make them so distracted that they won't realize that there's no difference between you and me. You just wear an interesting hat. And there comes to a point where they'll take off the hat, but it will take a long time, and that's just something that's part of the collective ego structure or framework of a stage blue that holds on to identity. And the concept of absolutes, it's not that the absolute is something that they follow, it's that usually the absolute is part of their identity. So it's absolutistic in the sense of, as long as I look the way I represent, then I'm okay with it. If the look changes so that I don't represent something that symbols a specific identity or way of being, then I'm going to be frustrated. So you can turn clothes into an identity. You can turn a way of thinking into an identity. So if you choose to say that you can't own a smartphone, that becomes an identity. If you choose to say you can't do this, can't do that, sometimes they create a whole identity surrounding it, and so they can't waver from that. So there's certain limitations on the faction of a stage blue part of that religion that they will not pass that threshold. They will choose not to violate that. And so an example of a stage blue concern is that just by making this video, there's a concern that someone who's in stage blue who might be watching this will say to themselves, okay, I'm a part of this religion, I'm a stage blue person, not me, but him, and I want to make sure that he's not taking away my identity in a strategic format. So they're going to say to me, I got to make sure this person is not my enemy. So all of a sudden there's this resistance and this resolve to say that this person is a problem. And so as a way to compensate, there's a regulating format to try to convince that collective ego that he's not a problem. So without bringing examples from my personal life, I'll try to bring other examples. You have a Catholic family, and 3 of the sons choose to not care about keeping Christmas spirit. And the parents are really upset about this. So their community is upset at them, and they decide they're going to put extra lights up for Christmas, and they're going to go to church with more enthusiasm than usual, with a nicer suit. Because if they don't, they're going to feel like God's going to punish them. And they hope that in their merit of going to church with a nicer suit and with more enthusiasm, they'll save their kids. Now, the reason why the reason why the parents feel this way is because they have a paranoia. But the paranoia on an esoteric level is actually coming from the collective ego of their society, of their mini society. Whether it's Catholicism or Mormonism or some variation, some faction that's huge or small or mediocre, just something that's a framework on this planet. And so therefore, they get this paranoia that forces them to change. Because they have the belief system is actually the collective ego's belief system, and it's messing with their psyche. So the reason why those parents end up staying in amber, staying in blue, is because they're trying to protect the kids, because the paranoia from the collective ego responds by permeating their brains, because it permeates the atmosphere, especially when it comes to religious group things. And so as such, the collective ego, I said the collective ego traverses into the minds of the parents, giving them paranoia. And that's the reason why they're forced to stay in. So what often happens, you have a fluctuation between the parents and the kids being observant, because there's a paranoia that permeates, that gets superstitious. Oh, the reason why this happens is because I wasn't religious enough, or I became religious and I went off. And there's this paranoia of it's because I did this and this. I'm being punished. So that concept of reward and punishment is still innate, and the collective ego thrives off of that way of doing things. In stage blue, the collective ego of stage blue. The collective ego of stage orange is a different story. That's not what this is. The collective ego of stage orange is, as long as your system provides me with money, that's what matters. If you can't provide me with money, I'm actually sacrificing to care about you, and you should appreciate me. So they want appreciation if they're sacrificing on money. And the stage blue collective ego says, dedication is more important than money. So therefore, if you don't add to the sense that you are religious, it makes my image look bad. So in Hebrew, they call this a Hilul Hashem, or the desecration of the glorified name, because anytime someone does something bad, it makes the whole sect look bad, right? So the fact that I'm Jewish, I'm Jewish. Either someone in the camera, someone in the public, so the Jewish person will say to me, who's religious, will say to me, "Oh, you're such a light. That's why your face is shining." Or the opposite, depending on the Jew. "Oh my gosh, you're talking such heretical things," right? But the fact that there's these divergent things, it's all rooted in the stage amber blue theology or value, vimim, of you have to honor and respect the doctrine or the group setting of what we represent. And that actually manifests in the collective ego. So the collective ego's personality will appear as such. Okay, so now that we clarified how to navigate that, I could stop here, but I just want to sum up. We discussed the collective ego on how to make sure that you're navigating it in a safe manner, why we have to navigate in a safe manner, why people are still stuck in blue, and why people get paranoia, and why there's such a difficulty with getting them out of it. It's because the anxiety is from the collective ego himself, who's almost as strong as the orange collective ego. The orange collective ego is strong, but when it comes to the blue collective ego, the only way to get the blue collective ego out of his way of thinking is if he feels that luxury is increasing. So it's like giving someone warm milk, right? It's like giving someone tea at night. That when you money soothes the mind. So the collective ego of blue calms down when it feels luxury, and that transitions it into orange. And like I said in the beginning of the video, that's how you get the stage blue to kind of relax and to be okay with taking off the hat for once in their life. Remember, the collective ego of stage blue believes that things are good and things are bad. And it usually picks something like sexuality, or picks something like image or honor as the major theme of how this is going to go down, or how this is going to appear. And so therefore it picks something stupid. And you can get into big trouble by going against their belief systems, because they have certain values that go to the core of that collective ego, of what they value. It's the reason why things get stuck in the body. Like, you have a belief system that it's good to be a virgin and it's bad to not be a virgin, right? Especially for women, this is a big problem. I still have a collective ego that says it's bad to not be a virgin. So I can't control it. I've been going to my past for months, because it's not me, it's the collective ego of that group. Meaning, if I were to be in a stage orange and do work 9 to 5, or whatever advanced stage you're at, where whatever you're involved in, if I was a part of a different ego structure, the value system would shift. But because I'm around any people of my past, it automatically waters the belief systems of that collective ego, even though I don't believe in it, or even though I've let go of it consciously. I've said that's not me. But because they pass by my house, and because I'm constantly being told it's Hanukkah, or it's this or that, I'm dragged into a life I want to leave behind finally, but I can't. So the value system and the traumas get activated and it stays in the body. This is why psychologists say you got to get away from your family. You got to go to a place that's completely separate from where you've grown up until you feel completely detoxed of all that. Then you can go back and little by little be okay with this and that. Because it's really not a good way to grow. And you may be asking me, oh, how do you grow in spiral dynamics if this... No, you can grow. You'll just always have the paradigm of stage blue affecting you. So it could be as you evolve, the reason why people get schizophrenia is because they're not actually schizophrenic. They're retaining the paradigm of stage blue that holds on to the energy and of the belief systems, so that the metaphors become reality and stay reality in the body. So when the mystical states come into the mind, it carries with it the stage blue belief systems, and that collective ego gets transferred over to people who are much higher up if they thought they were way past that. So they're not schizophrenic, they're not stage blue. They're neither, and they're both. Well, they're not schizophrenic. I'm saying they're both in terms of being on a high rung and having the lower rung active. Because it's the lower rungs that's permeating the atmosphere on a collective paradigmatic level. Can't pronounce it. Paradigmatic level. So what you learn here is that the paradigm is actually shifting, and how exactly that works is interesting, because we don't really know. But the way I currently understand it is, the moment one person who carries a little bit of it, there's the potential for you to have it as well. So just by hearing this video, it might transfer from me to you, and then you may say, I don't want to believe in that. So this is like the source of like belief systems transferring, and it's also similar to that thing with his mass hysteria. So mass hysteria is for sure because anxiety has a neurochemical phenomenon going on, but there's also beliefs actually transfer through the atmosphere, through the person, the energy of the person himself, because it carries over through something that's unconscious in mankind, or people kind. Some people take that really seriously, not saying mankind versus humankind. Or even not human. Stage green, they're against saying anything with man in it. Okay, so that covers the stage blue phenomenon, the esoterics, the secrets. I have known this for many years. I have worded it in different ways. It doesn't mean that I was on a higher rung back then, or this knowledge is not indicative of being in stage clear. This is knowledge that I had in stage coral and even turquoise. Now I just understand it better. Now I'm less afraid of it. Now I know how to navigate through it. That's it. This knowledge is not, just making sure that you know that this knowledge is not indicative of a high stage. It happens all across the spectrum.